The Cordova Recreation and Park District regular board meeting. It is Wednesday, October 17, 6:30 in the evening. Call to order.
Thank you, Therese. I would like to welcome to the podium Linda Hammett. She's from Brecca to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Wonderful, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to introduce who our
Our pledge, a leader.
our honorable guest here. Not only is she the chair of BRECA, the Butterfield Riviera East Community Association. It's for 3 years. How long is
I
it?
think this is my second year as chair.
Oh, second year. I'm sorry.
3 years on this board.
But she's also a very active community member and a lovely person. So I'd like to introduce Linda Hammett.
Hello, Linda, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Would you tell us a little bit about your association? I've attended your meetings, your annual meetings, and I've really been very impressed by the partners that you bring on board.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
And your neighborhood, they're also very well engaged.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yes, the Butterfield Riviera East Community Association has been in effect since about 1997, I think it's been. And very active in the community, making sure that the neighbors are informed and hoping to get the neighbors engaged in the community, bringing the community together. We live right along the parkway. Our neighborhood is bounded by the library on one side, Folsom Boulevard on the south, the American River on the north, the Mayhew Drain, and the library on one side. So basically over by Highway 50 in Bradshaw. And we have a pretty small community and a small community association, but quite active. We enjoy being involved in we're right along the border of Rancho Cordova, so we're very involved in Rancho Cordova issues as well, and really enjoying bringing the community together.
One of the things that I think your community has well established is your relationship with your POP officers. They seem to be they seem to have been there a while. And they seem to be they participate and they give information, and you get information on what were the happenings, et cetera. So that's something that...
Absolutely, yes. We have a very good relationship with not only our POP officers, but with the Rancho Cordova PD and the SAC Sheriff, as well as the park rangers. They all have a very collaborative relationship in our particular community because we do back up to the parkway, and we do have a lot of issues because of that proximity with between the parkway and the freeway. So our POP officers are very, very well engaged, and we just absolutely love them to death, the park rangers as well. I can't say enough great things about them. They collaborate and really help to keep our community safe and clean.
Well, thank you for your leadership in that, and maybe at one time or other, someone had approached me, I don't know, with our new developments and all this, and they want to put together a community or, organization that can be able to exchange news and keep people engaged and keep their eyes on the properties around. So I'll be sure to recommend them to check out your model there.
Oh, we would be delighted to
And
have
get
them
some
come observe
mentorship.
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we will move on to the roll call.
Director Lineback,
Here.
Director Sloan. Here. Secretary Danzel,
Here.
Vice Chair Yearwood,
Here.
and Chair Reyes.
Here. Board disclosures. Do we have any board disclosures on any of our action items from the board? Seeing none, then let us move on to item B.
Thank you, Chair Reyes. Comments by the public on non-agenda items. Members of the public may address the board on district topics not listed on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. It is a violation of state law for the board to discuss or take action on non-agenda items. Board members may only briefly ask clarifying questions or refer the matter to staff. And at this time, I do not have any speaker cards.
Okay, seeing none, then let us move on to the consent calendar.
Thank you. Consent calendar items are considered administratively routine and will be acted upon in one motion unless separate action on a specific item is necessary. The chairperson will consider any requests for discussion on the items prior to approval of the consent calendar. This evening, we have 3 items for your consideration. Item C1 is to accept and file the minutes from the School District 2x2 Standing Committee on October 2nd, 2017. Item C2 is to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Directors on September 19, 2018. And item C3 is the district financial report for August 2018.
All right, so we have consent calendar items. Do we have any need to pull any items for further discussion, questions from staff or the board? Seeing none, then I would entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of Directors accept the consent calendar items C1, C2, and C3.
Moved by Director Lineback, seconded by Director Sloan. Roll call vote.
Director Lineback,
Aye.
Director Sloan, Secretary Danzel,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yearwood,
Aye.
and Chair Reyes.
Aye. Thank you. So we will now move on to item D.
Thank you, Chair Reyes. Item D1 is a presentation by LPA Incorporated on the Cordova Community Pool Design. This is an informative presentation only, no action to be taken by the Board of Directors at this time. And I'd like to welcome to the podium Planning Manager Laura Taylor.
Hello, Laura.
Hello. So I'm very excited to be part of this presentation that you're going to see tonight. The Board of Directors approved the concept plan for the Cordova pool replacement at the May 29th board meeting. Since that time, the project team has worked very hard together, moving that concept forward in design. And we do have one of our project team members, Elizabeth Sparkman from the city, is in the audience today. So thank
Welcome.
you for coming.
Good to see you.
And then our consultants, LPA, we've got Arash Asadi, we've got Anthony Harris, and Dennis Berkshire, have all been, actively meeting with us, and we've come up with, I think, we're really making progress. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to them. They will share with you the status of the design based on the concept that you folks approved.
Thank you. This is long awaited.
Good.
All
I hope we
right.
don't disappoint. This will be great.
Thank you.
Okay, well, good evening. So we're going to take you through three parts here, a very short stint of kind of where we started, then we'll show you where we're at, and then certainly where we're going. There we go. So just a brief history. We were brought on board back in back in fall of 2017. We met, we went through a programming process. We developed some initial conceptual designs, concepts, ideas, all of those things. We had a public community meeting where we garnered some feedback on some of the ideas that had been generated. We came to the city council. We shared some of those ideas and the feedback that we had received and some of the ideas that had come out of that meeting as well. Then we brought it to you and shared sort of that snapshot in time and sort of the idea on what was it we were able to develop in conjunction with the budget. We then got some feedback from you, and there were some budget adjustments and things like that that went with the project. Then we were authorized to move into schematic design. Just a brief summary of what these kinds of mean. We start with a conceptual design process. This is where we go through programming and we get all the different pieces and parts of the puzzle that need to be kind of put together. Then we generally kind of lay out the puzzle. That's sort of schematic design. We kind of lay out all the pieces and start to get them put into some level of organization. That's where the ideas are sort of validated and worked through to make sure that they work. Then at that point, we do some costing kind of exercises, and then we go into design development. Design development is really the nuts and bolts. That's where we start to figure out all the little bits and pieces. We completed design development, and we are moving into construction documents. The construction documents is really where ideation is complete, and this is where we start to put together all the things where a contractor can take those drawings and build the project. So we finished design development. We're bringing that back to you guys as sort of a update on the concepts and designs and based on the feedback that we received. So that's where we're at today. Just briefly to orient everyone, this is the site, and the red line sort of defines sort of that project limit of the existing facility. The initial project included a single pool. On the far left, a new pool building that would serve the service functions of that pool. You can see the red line indicates the limits of the project. The existing buildings on the far right. The entry would come through the existing sequence of buildings and take advantage of the project entry and all those amenities, go through an entry gate system. Had a single lap pool, and then there was a secondary entrance on the far end for big special events and so on. We presented several options on possible enhancements to the project, looking at getting some feedback on a prioritization if the project were to take a different path there. We talked about shade canopies, some overflow areas that could be expanded, some additional seating, possibly covered entrance. We talked about converting some of the existing buildings into storage areas and possibly utilizing those. Talked about photovoltaic panels on the building or some sort of a energy kind of conscious approach to the project, and then even looking at cabanas and things like that that could be brought onto the project. Additionally, there was three other ideas that were presented, which had to do with expanding the lap pool, possibly looking at a secondary pool that was more focused on recreation, and then some amenities such as lighting and things like that. Those are the three elements that were approved by the board and we were asked to incorporate into the project. The original project was an 8-lane pool with 6 deep water lanes. We were asked to provide an expanded pool that became a 10-lane pool with 8 deep water lanes. We were to provide a recreational pool and we even shared some images of some play equipment, and the request was to enhance that play equipment as part of the expanded budget. And then we were asked to add in some security lighting and some infrastructure for a more robust kind of competition type lighting. So we incorporated the security lighting and are putting the conduits and infrastructure in so the expanded lighting could be added at a future date. The current project, so you can see obviously a much more robust effort with the expanded budget, became a lot of opportunities. On the far left, you can see the building. The building, now you're seeing sort of the guts and bones of the building, if you want to call it that. That one building did grow from what you originally saw because as you add a secondary pool, it has more equipment, it drives more toilet fixtures and things like that, more pumps, more filters, all of those things. So the building did grow. We've developed the project a little bit more too, so we have a definition of that service court drive on the upper portion of the project. The existing buildings are still there. The lap pool, you can see, has gotten a little bit bigger. It's got those 2 additional lanes. We are now showing the recreational pool on the bottom of your screen there, and all the expanded decking and everything that goes with that. So along with the pool, there's all that other stuff that kind of needs to go with it. And then we're still maintaining the project entry where we had shown it, taking advantage of all the improvements that are there in a sequence of entry. And then that secondary event entry is there as well. So the key pieces, we talked about the building. The building grew by about 600 square feet from where it was. We're roughly around 3,700 square foot building now. The 2 additional lanes on the pool, on the lap pool, so you can see it's 10 total lanes with 8 deep water lanes. Wanted to be real clear about that one. And then the additional recreational pool has a 0 water entry. It's got area for water features. It's got some lap areas there. It'll be kept at a warmer temperature to accommodate kind of that recreational component. The building itself, showing you what's in that at the top of your screen. I know it's a little difficult sometimes to orient this to the site that you were just looking at. At the top of the screen would be the lap pool, and on the right edge of your screen would be the project entry. So if you were to go through the existing sequence of buildings, you'd come in on that far right. There would be the ticket windows. On the left of that, there's a covered canopy there. You go through the entry gates to get into the project. Right at that corner is the lifeguard offices, which have windows that give them clear access to the pool deck. There's some infrastructure in the building, a janitor's room, the electrical room, and all those little kind of pieces that no one really knows exist. Those are all shown in gray, as well as on the far left of your screen is where all the mechanical pools and all the equipment and chemicals and all of those kinds of things go there. The green pieces are the locker rooms, the light green being the locker rooms. So you got separate men's and women's locker rooms, obviously. Some accommodations for lockers, changing rooms, and those kinds of things. And then we also have 2 family restrooms, or really all-purpose suites. Those have toilet fixtures, changing tables, and are completely separate and private. Giving you a quick glimpse of what the elevations start to look like. Some of the key things on the project: you need to have a very durable building, but it needs to also have an appropriate aesthetic to it as well. The 3 elevations that you're seeing are the elevations that someone would see. On the back side of the building, because the pool deck is depressed, you're not going to really see much of that building. There will be landscape, and it's really set down a little bit. So these 3 elevations are what you would ultimately see on the project. On the north, or far left, is really that service entrance. We have completely separate service entry from any kind of public entrance. So that's also adjoined with the fire access lane. So all of that service areas, fire access, emergency access, everything is completely separate. You can see the series of doors there that allow them to do all their deliveries and all of those things. On the second elevation on the right edge of that screen, that's the south elevation. That's where you would come down. On the left of that is the ramp that brings you down to that area. You see those 3 windows there. Those are the ticket windows. There would be a canopy there that provides some shelter and so on. And then you would go through the gates, and that far edge window is the corner window where everyone would be, the lifeguards would be able to see out on deck. And then the big elevation that you're seeing on the bottom, that's really the poolside elevation. You can see on the far left is all the lifeguard rooms and so on. Those doors approximately in the middle of the image are where you would enter the locker rooms, and the far right is where you would have the deck showers, and that's all the service areas that are kind of obscured by the solid portion of the building. And then I'm going to turn it over to Dennis here to talk real specifically about the pool components.
Thank you, Arash. Good evening. So when we look at the lap pool, as we've been calling it, this is a pool that had started off with a total of 8 lanes, 6 deep water lanes. It was increased to a 10-lane pool. And as you can see in the elevation at the bottom, the pool has a 1 meter diving board, so it's got a 12-foot water depth to accommodate that. We have 8 lanes of deep water that can accommodate swim meet and competitive swimming as well as water polo. The water then shallows up to the end where you see the person lounging on the deck, and that's our 3.5 to 4.5 depth area. And that's all lined with walkout stairs so that for swim lessons and other activities, people can sit along the stairs of the shallow end of that pool. With this pool, with this pool then having the total of 10 lanes, if we have lap swimming that wanted to take place, typically for this type of program, we would look at this saying it could support up to 4 to 6 swimmers per lane for practice or swimming. So we'd look at this and say this could accommodate up to 60 people swimming laps at one time. In addition to the competitive venues, then we look at this and say it can support recreation use, things like inflatables and whibbits. It also has the Learn to Swim program with the stairs that make it friendly. So really a multi-purpose pool that can do everything from recreation, instruction, fitness, to competition. Then we have the interactive play pool, and as Arash mentioned before, the crescent shape is the beach entry, the 0 depth entry to the pool. That goes into wading pool depths that are 18 inches deep, where we'll have the interactive play equipment that comes in. Then it necks around where we get to the water that'll get us to 3.5 feet deep. And that's the area where in this warmer water, we can have water fitness, water exercise, aqua jogging, aqua Zumba, things like that to take place simultaneously while the lap pool's being used for other programs. Then we started looking at what the interactive play is going to be. So we looked at things with dumping buckets and pieces that the children can interact with so that they can relate to the water and to the pieces. We also look at this where we have things that are flush to the deck or to the bottom of the pool, so they're bubblers of just water, and other pieces that'll have structural amenities to them as well. We then started looking at how we could to enhance this to get more recreation value so that now this is a facility that will draw for birthday party rentals and other activities for sustainability of the pool. So with this, we started looking at enhanced and themed ways that we could come in with this interaction and how it might fit to the community, to the setting of the pool. And so even talking about themes of whether it's animated types of pieces, different ways that we can work with this. And we're working with staff right now to really identify how we think this theming really wants to go and what might be the central theme that we want to pursue in these interactive pieces that we'll have in the activity pool.
So then looking at the next steps, you've seen where we're at. So the next piece of this is where we go into the future. We have this today, obviously, is the CRPD board presentation. We're going to be looking at a community meeting. I believe that's next week, where we're going to take this back to the community, show them progress, and elicit some feedback and comments. Then we go to the city council and do a very similar process to show them all the pieces that, how the project has progressed and all the components that have been added since they saw it last time. Then we're going to get into real deep documentation. That's where you're going to see a little bit of quietness on us. And we're going to have pencils down, or I'm sorry, pencils up, and mouses clicking away and developing the construction documents for the package. We're hoping to have the estimated groundbreaking would be in fall, and then the estimated grand opening would be in spring of 2021. That's the snapshot. There's a whole lot of stuff that happens in between all of that, but that gives you sort of the summary of where we're going as our next steps. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Looks exciting. Do I have any questions or comments from our board? Director Sloan.
I just had a question. I was at a meeting and the question came up on water polo. And I'm a little vague on the actual dimensions of what's required and what's adequate.
Sure.
So I think that the high schools, I know that Rosemont's pool is probably the same size as this pool is going to be, and they have a water polo team. So would we be having a playing high school water polo in this pool?
So you're talking to a water polo player. That was my scope. And water polo can be played in all sorts of settings, but there's certainly ideal kind of situations, and then there's CIF requirements. This project does meet CIF water polo for rim-mounted goals. So it does meet that criteria.
Great.
Is that correct, Dennis?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. He's the expert, so.
That is the
once
answer
he
I
has a
wanted to
nod.
hear.
Any other questions?
Fabulous.
It is very exciting. It looks so interesting. And I see features that I heard the community express, so I'm so glad that we're able to put that together. And again, it's like, 2021, but we got to keep going. And it really looks very exciting. I'm thrilled that we're moving along very well.
I just wanted to thank you guys for all of your flexibility in this process. I know our staff are experts in their opinions on how this should be, but we care deeply about this, bringing it to the community the right way the first time. So thank you for your flexibility. I know we've been kind of exaggerating some of the nuances of this at times, and so we do appreciate it. And thank you, Laura, for leading this on our behalf. It's going really well. I'm very excited as well. It's actually coming together exactly what I think the community is going to be asking for, and they'll be excited once they get this information next week.
Well, our appreciation as well. We are very excited about the project, so thank you very much.
So we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so now we see. That was exciting. Okay, so we are now going to move on to the committee reports.
Thank you, Chair Reyes. Item E1 is a standing committee report for the School District 2x2 with the Folsom Cordova Unified School District from October 3rd, and that is Chair Reyes and Director Sloan.
Thank you. Director Sloan, did you want to start off and I'll just add
Sure,
where I
sure.
can? Sure thing.
And you guys had a chance to read the minutes from that meeting, so a lot of the stuff that I'm going to say
The
here.
just want to make sure that the minutes that we have were of last year's.
Oh, those were last year's
year.
minutes.
If
Oh,
you
it
know,
wasn't-
because I
oh.
said the same thing.
Oh.
Before anything, I wanted to simply clarify here that the 2x2 is Vice Chair Yearwood and Sloan, Director Sloan, and I set in for Vice Chair Yearwood. That's why we'll be reporting. Okay?
So it was a year since we met last, which
I said the
It's
same.
amazed me that how time flies. So there, a lot of the stuff on the agenda was a lot of stuff that we're starting working on a year ago and come a long way and to where we are today. And the pool was one of the number one things, and we just basically reiterated what we just heard from our consultants here. Joint use agreement is underway. I think the document's being prepared more and more every day. It's not completely done yet, but it's getting closer and closer. There was during the pool project, there's some issues with the lights at the tennis court about being turned off or being turned on from a different location or something. So that was one thing that's going to have to be taken into consideration. Another one of the things where we were talking to the school district was a lot of times when you get these calls from the police, and they have lockdowns at the schools, and sometimes the park district doesn't even know that this is going on unless, maybe there's a parent who works at the park district. So we're working on getting our communications together so that any type of a situation that could affect both the schools and our park people, that we're on the same page and we know how to react to those situations. So it's sort of a safety plan that we're talking about. The idea of creating another hideout came up. We've got a successful one that's over at Hagen, but the issue came up the kids who go to Mitchell, transportation is not easy for them to get there, and right now we've got, it takes them a while because the vehicle that we have is not a large vehicle and can only pick up maybe 4 or 5 people and make 3 or 4 trips. And so this is the first I heard about that they're talking about possibility of taking a space over at Mitchell and creating another hideout, which I think would be very nice. And do you want to
Yeah.
piggyback on that?
I wanted to also note that we had the superintendent of Folsom Cordova Unified School District, Sarah Collegian, which was very good, breath of fresh air. I think she's attended the first one and again this time. We went for several years and we did not have the superintendent joining us, and so this was really good. It was nice to meet Sarah. She is definitely very supportive and respectful of the working relationships that our staff has had. One of the things that we also met, Peter, who was Maroon or something. Yeah, he's the new athletic director for the district, and we met the communications director, PIO. Is that Christopher Daniel? And who was Christopher Clark? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right, Chris. Yes. So he was there, and it was really good because we met the PIO, and our staff was able to talk to the other staff and talk about how they would be able to work towards getting information out to the community we serve. Part of that high discussion also brought up that there was a suggestion, a question as to, hey, if there's any way anyone had a van that was available, that's all they needed to be able to bring the students from Mitchell to the hideout program over at Hagen. Also, it was explained that it was not just like a hideout, a club. It was also, they did a lot of after-school and homework. And I think the superintendent was really impressed by that. She has said that with the safety plan, they have a couple of community forums that they were going to have. One was going to be at the end of the month at their district office. So it was very encouraging. It was a great subject matter to talk about the lockdown communications. Because it's been times where the school had a lockdown and the park where we did express them, we do have, the preschool and other activities going that we need to be able to communicate, and that was great. That was a good opportunity to bring that up. Other than that, they discussed the fire hydrant, the tennis courts, and the peach jar program. It was decided that we would work on possibly doing a rotating meeting location. So maybe the next meeting would be hosted by Folsom Cordova Unified School District. And also, at this point, they simply said that even a yearly come together would be good. And if there was a need to get together sooner, then that's when staff would bring it to our attention and we'd get the 2x2s going. The joint use agreement is just about almost done, and that's really good because it go back and forth. Now it's just words that they're trying to wordsmith. And that's it. Thank you. So now that we're done with our community reports, let us go to item F, which is public hearings.
And we have none this time?
All right, so that's good. Now we're going to go to item G.
Thank you, Chair Reyes. Item G1 is to authorize the district administrator to execute a park use agreement with the Cordova Community Council to allow the use of the Village Green for the annual holiday tree lighting event on November 25th, 2018. And I'd like to turn it over to Recreation Superintendent Jill Nuns.
Tree lighting, yay!
Yeah. Hello, Jill.
Where did that year go? I feel like I was just up here talking to you about that. So yes, we're in the planning stages. Shelley Blanchard's here as well. So if we have any additional questions, but we are in the planning stages for this year's tree lighting. The actual event happens on November 25th. So that's when the event is. Right now, like I said, we're in the planning stages. Scott Norton's also on that planning committee. So we sit on that committee, make sure that we can offer any help that we can to the CCC, but it is at the Village Green again. They're hoping for no rain, of course. We don't want any rain. They are not doing inflatables this year. Instead, they're gonna, because the weather kind of puts
Yeah.
a damper on the inflatables. But they're gonna try for snow. So we've got the tree lighting, we've got fireworks, we've got snow, we've got the food trucks. The Sacramento Valley live steamers will be there. Obviously, entertainments, some hay rides. Am I forgetting anything, Shelley? Santa. Santa will be on the stage this year, I heard. So Santa's on the stage this year. But it's a wonderful event. I know that you all have been there before. Nothing's really out of the ordinary. So tonight we just want to bring the agreement, the park use agreement, to your attention. If you have any questions, obviously both of us are here to answer any of those.
Thank you. Directors, do we have any questions for Jill or Shelley?
Will Cupcake
Okay.
be there?
I was gonna do that. That's why I get distracted. Vice Chair Yearwood has a
Are you guys going to do
question.
the live nativity? Are we bringing cupcake?
Will cupcakes be there?
They're gonna have people dressed up as.
I don't know if Cupcake will be there or Cupcake-ette. We're not sure if Cupcake, yeah. So, I know, we'll see. We'll see. Cupcake's getting a little older, so yeah, we'll see if Cupcake will be there. But our polar bear will be there promoting our polar bear plunge, so.
Actually, Cupcake's got legal counsel now, and he approached us and said that if he's gonna be there, he's gonna have to have some extra things to eat.
Cupcake needs it to be a certain temperature, no rain, so.
All right.
Any questions?
Any questions? If not, then I would love to entertain a motion, please.
I move the Board of Directors authorize the district administrator to execute a park use agreement with the Cordova Community Council to allow the use of Village Green for their annual holiday tree lighting event on November 25th, 2018.
Moved by Secretary Danzel,
I'll second.
seconded by Vice Chair Yearwood. Roll call vote.
Director Lineback,
Aye.
Director Sloan,
Aye.
Secretary Danzel,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yearwood,
Aye.
and Chair Reyes.
Aye.
Thank
So
you very
motion
much.
carries. Thank you. All right, item G2.
Thank you. Item G2 is to adopt Resolution 18/19-24, approving the Park Development Agreement with Woodside 05N LP for the Douglas 98 Development Project and authorize the chairperson of the Board of Directors to sign the same. And I'll turn it over again to Manager Laura Taylor.
Good evening, Chair Reyes and members of the board. So this is an exciting subject because it's going to be one of the first projects that actually has new rooftops coming into our district in the very near future. So the representative Brian Cutting is here in the office or in the audience representing Woodside 05N LP. And so we've worked very closely together on putting together this PDA. And so just a little background on this project. It's located at the southwest quadrant of the intersection of Douglas and Grant Line Roads. It's on the east edge of the very far east edge of the district's boundary. The project itself is about 105 acres, and it'll build out to include approximately 528 total residential units. The small lot tentative subdivision map for this project includes one 7.3 acre community park and two 1.1 acre neighborhood parks. So Woodside 05N, the developer, will hire consultants and contractors to design and construct the parks as turnkey projects. The district planning staff will review and approve the park plans and inspect the construction for compliance to the district standards. The PDA that you have in your packet establishes the terms by which the developer shall improve and dedicate the parkland and pay park development impact fees. So they will be paying a portion of fees, the 1,350 per household that will go into a pot that contributes to community, a larger district-wide community facilities. And they will also construct all the turnkey parks. The final subdivision map is expected to be approved by the city council at their November 5th, 2018 meeting. The fully executed park development agreement is required before the city will allow the developer to move forward with the recordation of the final map on the project. And the final map is needed to be recorded before the developer can sell any lots for the project. There is a condition in our PDA that requires a fair share maintenance funding mechanism, such as the Community Facilities District, and that's required as part of the PDA. So in the very near future, the Finance Department will be bringing before the board some CFD documents for that purpose. All of the district's costs in terms of staff and attorney consulting will be reimbursed by the developer per our cost recovery ordinance. And so the result of the recommended action would be that we could go do the full execution of the park development agreement between the developer and the district. And this PDA will satisfy a city requirement that they need that before they can approve the final map. So it's very timely because November 5th is just around the corner. And it'll allow the developer to continue moving forward on the development of the residential project. Brian Cutting's latest estimate for groundbreaking on the community park and one of the neighborhood parks was sometime this summer. Fingers crossed if everything goes right. So with that, we would request that the board adopt Resolution 1819-24, approving the park development agreement with Woodside 05N.
Thank you. Do we have questions from the board? Director Lineback, please.
Yes, I would just, I love this district-wide fee of $13.50 per residential unit. As you know, I had a question about it because I didn't understand how it works. And then I sort of had a further question, which is, does that mean it helps to build a community center in that community-sized park, that $13.50, or does it go into?
No, it will go into a pot that is used for amenities that will be in some other community parks or other facilities that this the residents of this neighborhood subdivision will benefit from. So, we have, for instance, a aquatic center in the Rio del Oro area that the portion of this kind of goes into a pot for that. We have, artificial turf fields that takes more than one subdivision to contribute, the amount of population it takes to justify that. So that's what that fee goes into.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So you said that the estimated groundbreaking on the community park would be this coming summer? Next summer? 2019?
So I
Yeah.
can,
Brian, why don't you come on up here?
so
And we
let
can
me,
ask you.
Well, let me just clarify a
Okay.
few things, because this is a smaller community park as
Yes.
far as community parks go. And I can
7.3, yeah.
imagine that you might be a little surprised, because it took us so long to get through the Heron Landing Park design process, right? So the Heron Landing Design Park has a lot more intensive active park facilities than what is programmed for this project. So that's one reason why it's going to happen a little faster maybe than you might have expected it to. But certainly Brian can answer any other question.
Pleasure to be with you. Timeline-wise, this project has been very unconventional from the beginning. We acquired the property in April, and at the time, this, as in 6 months ago, at the time, we did not have any improvement plans drawn for anything. It was a raw piece of land with zero engineering. And with I would say a gold star team we have in place of engineers, consultants, project managers, and in great cooperation with the City of Rancho Cordova, the Parks District, SMUD, PG&E, the county. If you drive out there today, you'll see we are going to be paving a brand new Douglas Road this Saturday. So we've been moving at breakneck speed and achieving a lot of things that a lot of folks have said were not possible. And our intention, timeline-wise, big picture, is to have paved streets by Christmas time within the subdivision, start model homes January, February of next year, and start, of the three parks, the central community park break ground summer of next year, so that the residents have a place to recreate and to enjoy right away. We don't want this to be a place where, there's these promises of a park are going to come someday. We want that. We want it now.
That is true,
So
because
we've,
that's what happened with Heron Landing, and parks sell
Yeah.
homes. Now, what kind of homes are you going to be having there, size-wise?
Wide variety. It's a wide variety of homes. We have some small lot homes on alleys, some 45 by 75 foot alleys between, the homes are between 1,500 and 2,200 square feet.
Wow.
We have larger lots that are kind of a 5,700 square foot lot with homes up to 3,000 square feet. So there's five different product types, 5 different communities. Hang on. 17 different floor plans will be offered. So there's going to be a wide variety of homes available for a wide variety of family structures within Rancho Cordova.
Great, wonderful. Do we have any other questions for Brian? All right, keep it coming, keep it working, and good luck, and hopefully we do get to see groundbreaking in the summer. And that's a very, very smart thing for developers to do, because people buy and they want to be able to enjoy it.
Right.
Heron Landing took a while, and they couldn't understand why, but, so this is nice. That'll sell real well, property real well. Thank you.
It's a pleasure
All
to be
right.
here. Thank you.
So, good luck. So if we don't have any other questions, then I would entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
I move the Board of Directors adopt Resolution 18/19-24, approving the Park Development Agreement with Woodside 05N LP for the Douglas 98 Development Project, and authorize the chairperson of the Board of Directors to sign the same.
Moved by Director Lineback,
I'll second that.
seconded by Director Sloan. Roll call vote.
Director Lineback,
Aye.
Director Sloan,
Aye.
Secretary Danzel,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yearwood,
Aye.
and Chair Reyes.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, so we will move now to item G3.
Thank you. Item G3 is to authorize the district administrator to publish the notice inviting bids for the construction of the Riviera East Park Walkway Replacement Project. And I did make a little notation change there to remove the word community out of the title. So it's Riviera East Park. And I'll turn it back over to Manager Taylor.
Okay, another exciting project brought to you by the Measure J My Parks Enhancement Fund.
Yes, good, good, good.
So we're very excited to be embarking upon another highly desired project within our community. This was a project that we've heard a lot about and gotten a lot of community input about the need to replace and even place some new walks in Riviera East Park. And so we've got the plans and specifications completed, and there's a diagram in your packet that, with the dashed lines, that shows you exactly what our construction project will replace. It'll be replaced all with concrete.
It's, I guess, the whole,
Yeah, but mine shows up pretty good. Does
boundary?
yours not show up very well?
no.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a note of that so that we can do a better job of that in the future. Okay,
You want to explain it, Laura, a little bit, like if, can you kind of walk them through this?
how about if I pass the one I have around? I'll just pass it and then you guys could, because this shows the, it shows up on mine.
That's better.
You?
Can you walk them through using this one, and so they can kind of guide their way through?
Oh, here you go. It's inside. So here it is. This doesn't show it, but it got too dark, that's all. You can line it here. I can highlight it now that I know where it is.
Okay, I think next time we'll go with black line diagrams instead of aerial photos in the background.
It's good.
So basically, it's replacing all of the existing walks that are there, and there's a stub that goes out towards the street to the north that gets added to this, so.
So how long is this going to take?
Want to
When you-
just point it out to them real quick?
So it is this one right in here. That's gonna be all right in there. I think right now it's either not there or it's so deteriorated that it's. Pardon? Yes. Well, I'm guessing that it goes into a street connection. I'm not sure if that's Appalachian Drive.
So it goes into Appalachian Drive.
They're
Okay,
in the neighborhood, it is.
it is.
Okay, thank you.
Fun.
Okay,
All right.
so the estimate for this project is very close to 175,000, which we just wanted to make sure that we went ahead and put it out to bid as a formal bid process so that if it does come in over 175,000, we followed the rules and we don't have an issue with that. So the bids are planned, should you folks agree to allow us to put this out to bid, the bids will be opened on November 29th. And then our intention would be to come to the board at the December meeting with a recommendation for award.
Oh.
Talking about that little additional thing, because I know between the two houses, that there's a little more parkway right there. Is that our property? See, it doesn't just go straight across.
Oh,
It goes into that little area right there. It's a grassy area
okay, so.
in between these two houses.
Right, so that is not our property, and our project ends at our property line.
So isn't there, what's there right now? There's a walkway. And it's made out of what? Asphalt? So we're not going to replace that? We're going to have asphalt? That's the walkway into the park. Then you're saying you're going to,
We can't touch it if it's not on our property.
who owns that property? It's actually Parkway entrance. It's like,
That's a good question, and I will find out the answer for you.
because I mean, it's, I think the pillars are there where you can't drive. And I believe there's this thing where you can get something, it says, pick up after your dog. So I think there's signage there, is there not? Park signage. in that little sliver area.
Okay, I'll definitely look into that.
Yeah, we don't want to have a nice walkway and then all of a sudden have this asphalt where people are gonna still get hurt.
Okay. So,
Well, we have to find out whose
but
it is.
nevertheless, it is, as far as we know, it's not our property. And so the question is, do you, the question before you tonight is, do you want to proceed with the construction documents and
Can I
putting out
ask
the
you a
bid?
question? Who's been maintaining it?
I do not know that answer.
I think our park employees have been maintaining it.
Okay, this is good to know.
Okay. So, so your question here is, as you get the answer for that piece of property, know if it's ours or not, or whatever, are we going to be able to approve, to publish the notice inviting bids? Directors? Should we ask staff to make sure that if it was park property and park control, that we include it in the bid? Obviously.
We have to find out.
But if
because
it's not, then we have to hopefully find out whose it is.
That's a good question. I've been living there for over 30 years and
So we
I
can
always thought it
defer
was part of
this,
the park.
we can defer this till the December meeting if you'd like. Unfortunately, we won't be able to address it at the November meeting because of other
'Cause you'll have to
commitments
put the
already.
bid,
So we would have to wait until December to bring it back to you again with
We're
that
talking about
answer.
40, 50 feet, probably.
There is another option. Another option would be to go ahead and allow this project to proceed. And we could look into that and consider it, if it ends up being our property and we have the ability to make changes on that property, we could consider a change order to the to this project. And we
That's
could
right.
give you an update in our bullet points at a later date. That's another option.
That might be a good option, because this way, because once we postpone the notice for bids, then we will not, we're postponing the whole process for start and all. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I'll make a motion
Directors.
for it, but I still think that that's important that that area is done.
Totally. I think
It's-
staff
it's-
has
It's
it.
an entrance to the park. It's an entrance, an exit. It's, people walk it every day. It's not, and that's, more homes are going that direction than they do from Mira del Rio.
Are you
Unless you
sug-
drive to Mira del Rio.
Are you suggesting that we should improve it if it is not park property?
I'm suggesting we should look into it and find out what we can do to get it developed. I'm not saying for us to vote on doing that, but you need to look at that part of the park. It could be a liability if it's not. So,
But the thing is, I think we just need to make sure that if
Someone's
it's not
liability.
park property, we cannot even plan on it. And if it's not park property, then, and staff will check into that. If it is park property, and as staff had said, that can be included with a change order
Right.
into this, but at least the bid is out there and it can come back and we can at least have a feel of the price that we can get in our November board meeting, which will be November 14th. It's an earlier board meeting,
We
so.
won't be able to bring it on November 14th because of prior.
So December is what you're
So the
saying?
December would be the earliest I
Oh,
could bring
okay.
it back to you.
All right, I thought you said, okay. So Director Lineback?
Yeah, I don't really have a question. I don't really see a problem with approving going forward with the bid process. I think it's pretty clear that our own planning staff will make sure that the bid request will include our property,
Everything that's in our property.
everything that's in our property. So if it means that the current drawing has to be expanded a little bit, that can come back with a change order. I don't see why it would have to delay this.
That's a
would-
good point there, and I think staff has told us that. So do we have any other comments or questions by
I'd like to
the
make a
board?
motion.
Okay,
I move the Board of Directors authorize the district administrator to publish the notice inviting bids for the construction of the Riviera East Parkway Replacement Project.
Moved by Director Sloan and seconded by
Second.
Secretary Danzel. Roll call vote.
Director Lineback,
Aye.
Director Sloan,
Aye.
Secretary Danzel,
Aye.
Vice Chair Yearwood,
Aye.
and Chair Reyes.
Aye. So motion carried.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Make sure there is a sign when that project starts that lets the people know that this is a Measure J.
So either way, we will report back as to whether or not that's our property so that we have that clarity before we move forward.
Thank you.
All right,
That's
thank you
good.
very much.
All right. Okay, so now we are item H.
Thank you, Chair Reyes. Item H1 is board member reports. And first we have training, which was the CSDA Annual Conference, September 24th through the 27th. And that is Secretary Danzel and Director Sloan.
Okay, yes.
Well, we had a good time, and I was so happy that Laura Taylor could join us on that. It was a happening. He took the place of Patrick because he was doing the leadership thing, but
Oh, okay.
it was. I really liked the keynote speaker, the woman, Connie Podesta. I thought that was kind of cool because she spelled out some type of a characteristics of every individual and their personality, and so I was asking around the district last time I was upstairs of what shape they would be, and there were lots of circles and triangles. Not very many squares.
Squiggles. Go squiggles.
No, it was a very few squiggles too. But I basically took a lot of. I tried to go for some of the courses I've never taken before, and one was building a personal brand, which I thought was going to be your district, but actually was a branding myself. So it deals with my community, people that are coming into contact with me, and I thought that was pretty an interesting one. And then another one, a couple of ones that I went to was the Brown Act in action and navigating pitfalls. And there was one where they had like a nightmares on board night, the Brown Act rules of order and meeting standards and stuff, and how do you deal with directors that don't follow protocol, community members who don't follow protocol.
Really? That must have been exciting.
Yeah, it was interesting. All in all, it was a lot of the vendors. There was one vendor out there that was dealing with older properties, and I thought it was interesting because there's a program that they are going to probably approach our district with, where we can retrofit and change some of our existing appliances or things on air conditioning units that require a lot more energy to run with more efficient ones, and actually with the money that we're saving by not pumping it into the utility bill will pay for the program. So these are just things that because a lot of our facilities are getting older and older and older, and so this would be a good way to look at the I don't know if it's using our Measure H, not Measure H,
J.
Measure J funding more adequately, but mostly in the community parks and buildings, like especially the golf course. We actually met at the golf course, and I looked at the top of their old air conditioning units up there. Been there for many, many years. So, but you want to add on to this, Brian?
Yes. Speakers, first of all, were phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. It was interesting because the first one talked with using shapes and what was it, the 30 and below, Rick?
Were they the squares?
No, the watch thing.
Oh, the watch, that's right. Who has, anybody has watches?
Laura, was Taylor. 30 and, was it 30 and below on the watches?
Don't own a watch.
Don't own a watch on,
What you said?
day one. Oh, you were doing, that's
Oh,
right.
she
You were,
didn't do,
but yeah, she talked about, yeah, she was working. I remember her saying that now. But they talked about people under the age of 30 not having their having a wristwatch.
wearing
And there's,
one.
you know, a reason why we've gone away from it. You know, it's the cell phone, this, that, and the other. But she called some lady up, younger lady up, and she left her phone on the table. Came up on stage, talking to her. And she goes, "Well, what time is it?" "Well, I'll have to go get my phone." Well, but if you had your watch, and so she actually gave her a watch, and
gave her one,
the rest of the conference, anytime anybody saw this young lady, asked her what time it was. It was quite
That was
interesting.
good.
did it with no PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, she did an hour and a half presentation with no PowerPoint. It was incredible. Talked about the disadvantage of PowerPoint, things like that. I also took the same class, the 5 things you can do to build an awesome personal brand. Definitely an interesting class. Learned a little bit about myself in this class and things that we needed to do there. And then the one that I knew I was close on, but I had to give Clerk Jones a text that morning and say, "Hey, how am I in AB 1234 on my ethics training?" I knew it was coming up, but I wasn't sure because I'd like to kill that one out there and get that done. Because doing it with you guys is great and fine and dandy, but sitting in a room with directors that have been directors for 30 and 40 years and listening to some of the questions that they, "Well, what do you mean I can't do that? I've been doing this for 30 years. And knowing that our clerk has definitely schooled us on a lot of these things, and I've actually told her thank you. But it was, people couldn't figure out this email communication about, the biggest one was the email communication. Well, everybody always hits reply all, and I'm like, "Can I just answer this real quick?" And it was, that the BCC, use the BCC, and then you don't end up with that problem. And you saw light bulbs click on all at the room. We can do that? Well, yeah, because that's how our clerk communicates, or our administrator communicates with us all the time. We all know what's going on. I can hit reply all, that's going to go to you two, not the other 4 that sit here. So it was kind of fun to see that. I will not steal all the thunder, but the second day afternoon lunch was an incredible feeling. That's all I've got. I will let Ms. Taylor talk about that later.
That's wonderful. And Director Sloan enjoyed it. He's got a smile on his face. Okie dokie.
It was a good conference this time.
All right, thank you. Now we have the board member community activities and meetings report. So would we like to start with Terry, Director Lineback?
So I did attend, I think I might have told the board that there was going to be this second special meeting of the Redevelopment
Yeah.
Agency Oversight Board, just to approve some past payments that had previously been withheld by the city and the county of Sacramento for CalPERS, that they had determined shouldn't be paid out of Redevelopment Agency funds. They were sued, they lost that suit. So we were just there to make those payments, which had to be done by law. So there were no dissenting votes. I attended the Rosemont Community Association meeting on October 4th, and I did report back to them that the district indeed will involve the community in that Little Primrose Park playground replacement. But other than that, there were no items of specific interest to the district.
But they have that Oktoberfest thing, that beer thing?
They had it.
Oh, they had it?
Yeah, it was in October. On October 5th, which was my birthday, and I was in South Lake Tahoe.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
What did you do in South Lake Tahoe? Were you there for the weekend?
Just for the weekend, yeah.
How
Just
nice.
ate in really fancy, incredible restaurants and stuff like that.
Richard did good.
He was good. And then with some fellow board members, sat in at the community outreach meeting for the Williamson property, which I thought was a very good and positive meeting. There was a great attendance by the public. They were engaged in the topic. The facilitator kept things moving in, a forward direction. And I think the district got a lot of important feedback from the community for how to proceed with that property. So kudos to, Administrator Larkin, to the planning department, to the consultant. It was a very well-run meeting. All the meeting materials were appropriate, so I thought it was superior.
Good.
That's my report.
Thank you. Director Sloan?
Okay, I'll go next. October 2nd, I attended the Rancho Cordova Athletic Association meeting. And what was interesting is that the lights that were going to be put on, or they're looking at putting on the Allspring Park Little League field, that project now is on hold because I guess there's been some extra funding and the city's looking into getting more involved, and they're looking at doing a bigger project. And instead of doing something that they might have to redo, they're going to wait. They're just going to hold off until they figure out what the scope of the project's going to be. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more of that project as we go on. So the talks came on about basketball leagues and how we're going to team up with the schools and maybe get back to where we were using some of the multi-purpose rooms for youth sports, the way it used to be 10 years ago or so. We were doing that. So that's another thing on the agenda. The Stone Creek soccer turf is, you guys all know that we took a beating with some vandalism out there at Stone Creek. My son lost a couple practice days, but the district got in there, and I swear I didn't see the before. I never saw pictures, but I saw how they fixed it up and they made it flat again because someone had gone in there with a four-wheeler and tore it up. And I was
Too bad.
yeah, and it caused them to lose 2 fields of play. But there's a $8,100 bank that's going to go in for the soccer turf from the measure from that enhancement renovated projects list. So I think we're looking good on the stuff happening at RCIA. We had the induction of the fourth induction of the Rancho Cordova Athletic Association Hall of Fame, which was last Saturday, and that went well. And on today, I had the luxury of meeting the new CEO of Capri and the CARPD, Matt Duarte. He's relocating from Southern California.
Wow.
With his family he's got a lovely wife and 3 children. I'm trying to get them over to look at this area, but they're looking at Roseville right now. But he's also was interesting that he's also a licensed lawyer.
Okay.
So sometimes if there's as part of the perks of being a member now could be if you have some questions that need to be illegal and you don't want to have to whether you need our legal counsel or not, you might have some questions that this guy can answer.
So he is the executive director of Capri?
Capri, and part of he wears 2 hats, just like Pat Kabuligan wore 2 hats. He did the CARPD also.
So he's doing both?
He does both, yeah.
He does both. Interesting.
Yeah.
And Pat's retiring, I heard.
Pat's retiring. He's going to move to Utah and be with his extended family.
Interesting.
We talked about Prop 68 funds. I thought was interesting is that, that it passed last election, and there's going to be a couple go-arounds. First, they're going to look at competitive grants that they're going to offer first before they give the districts per capita money from that. I guess there's some entity that divvies out the funds. So we talked about the spring conference. It's going to be May 22nd through the 24th. That's Wednesday. It's right after Ledge Days ends. And can you guess where it's going to be? Yeah, they just can't get around the price of this one hotel compared to what other hotels are going to cost us for rooms and stuff. So we're back up at the Tahoe
Lake Resort.
Lake Resort. Yeah, so hopefully we'll all be able to make it this year, and next year. And this Friday is the Rosemont Homecoming Community Parade. You guys want to come out there and check it out? It starts at 3:30 on Kiefer Boulevard. And I think that's all.
Thank you, Director Sloan. So now Secretary Danzel.
I just have one thing to report this time. It is the Williamson Property Community Meeting. I agree with Director Leinbach. It was well attended, a lot more than I thought it would be. I was glad it was well attended. And it seemed like it was pretty much the neighbors from right within those couple blocks or that community itself, which is definitely good because they're the ones going to be most affected by it. There was some difference of opinion, but I think we got most of that worked out. And I made this comment to our administrator that night, that maybe we need to start a half hour early and go over who CRPD is and where their money goes, and so we can actually have some more time on the actual project. But it was very interesting to see what people knew about the district, what people had no clue what government agency we were, where we got our funding from, whether it was the feds, the city, the state. Oh, wait, them directly is where our funding is from. So it was quite interesting. But the facilitator heard from several people that night. Fantastic. He did exactly what he needed to do. As Director Leinbach said, it was, well moved, and he just kept things going, even with the hangups we'd get there, and even the one or two negative comments that came out at first. By the end of that meeting, I don't think those negativities were there at all. I think the minds were changed, and it wasn't us that changed them. It was true fact that changed those and made things go in the right direction. So I'm can't wait to see what meeting number 2 brings. So, okay, that's it for me.
Thank you, Vice Chair Mike Yearwood. Vice Chair Michael Yearwood.
We're so informal tonight. I have nothing.
Thank you. For my sake, the community outreach meeting that we attended, I think I was counting as best I could, and I counted about 46. So yes, that's a wonderful show. Yeah, 46 interested, engaged community members, and it was really nice because it was a whole mix of diversity and age even included, which is really good. The facilitator was really very good. One of the things that I really liked about him was to be able to, he says, we're here to listen to what anyone has to say, good, bad, or indifferent, and he handled it very well, very respectful to all. Yes, that was interesting, huh? From behind, they were saying like, wait a minute, what's the district? And that's where we had. So that's a very good reaction. We know now, like anything else, even in the Gold River, they don't know who runs their parks. And so it's really, I think, hopefully we get on our marketing and whole communications and all that and start getting people to see that the parks around, the parks of Cordova Rec and Park District is theirs to enjoy. It's not just limited. Also, this Saturday, October 20th, there is the quarterly meeting for the board that I joined, the California Association of Park and Recreation Commissioners and Board Members. I have to write this letter down. I know what they say. I know I always mix it up. But anyway, they are having I've attended their monthly executive board meetings. And I've listened, and it's normally telephone web because it's the whole state, right? But this time, I guess it's going to be in Lake Forest, all right? They have the north, and then they'll have the south, and all these meetings. And what's going to happen is this is more of the quarterly annual whole group meetings. So it's interesting. I'm still getting a hang of what they really have as activities that can involve us. They are definitely, one of the concerns they were trying to bring up was water, the cost of water, and how it was affecting their districts. But they're also looking for more participation and more members. And Jim Simpson is working at bringing in more park districts and special district members to join them. And they also are looking for officers for the board. And I told them, you got to give me some time first. Because they're like, we've got the secretary position. Are you open? I'm like, I haven't really even gotten the hang of it. So anyway, but we are meeting, and I'll bring you any decisions or activities that they're going to be having soon. Report on to you. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to our board H2.
Thank you. Item H2A is to appoint the agency designated representative for closed session labor negotiations for the district administrator employment agreement. And I'm just going to highlight a few things here in the staff report, and then I'll turn it over to Chair Reyes to make some comments. We were directed at the last board meeting to bring this item forward as we begin the process for the administrator evaluation. This is the first step. I listed the California Government Code that explains why we do this before we head into closed session, so that's in your staff report. I do want to point out that the agency designated representative receives instructions from the board regarding labor negotiations, so they do not act independently. They act on direction of the full board. This appointment is intended to continue throughout future administrator employment agreement labor negotiations, regardless of who is elected the chairperson. And then also of note is that the board may change this representative at any time. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chair Reyes.
Yes, and last board meeting, we were discussing this, and we kind of said we had our whole evaluation process down pat to some extent. We don't need to appoint an ad hoc committee to do any further setting. But right now, what we're here to do is we are here to appoint the agency designated representative for closed session labor negotiations. At this time, last year, the board, last 2 years, or last year, the board appointed Vice Chair Yearwood to do it. When we were talking and with staff, and even as I presented to you, my suggestion was to have it so that it would allow each of the chairpersons to participate and become the labor negotiator. Okay, so what I'd like to propose is that we establish, instead of saying a person's name, we say the position. And so what I'd like to propose is that the chair of the board, as it changes or whatever, will be the negotiations representative, designated negotiations.
Chair Lambic, I only have one comment on that, and it's just because, sorry.
No problem.
I'm thinking too far ahead. Chair.
It's like, Chair Linebacker. That's okay.
So Chair, ooh, it's gonna be a night. Chair Reyes, so hearing some concerns from a director that they don't want to do this again. The only caveat is that I don't know how to do it because we're saying the chairperson will be that person, but I think we need to give, in a sense, a way for that chairperson, if they choose not to do it, they make their designee at that point, that the board doesn't need to agree on it, but, so if Vice Chair Yearwood
Yes.
next year decides he doesn't
Yes.
want to do it, we all agree that whoever he chooses to take that appointment for him.
Yes,
Is that-
or I think what happens there is, if I understand this correctly, as our board clerk said, what'll happen is at any time, the board can ask to appoint the designated. And so what we're going to do here, yes, is we'll do that, and should any one of us, anyone on the board, choose that they would rather not do it, then it's okay. At that point, that chair can bring it up and say, I'd like to see directors, I'd like to move that the labor negotiator representative be someone else, and that's doable.
Well, I think you're suggesting that the board chair either be the negotiator or the one who can appoint a designee without going back to the full board with regard to who that negotiator would be.
Okay?
I'm
Can we
not
do
sure we
that?
can do it in that kind of administrative step. We would have to make the nomination now just because we have to announce who that person is as we go into closed session. So we wouldn't be able to say, for example, on a future agenda, the chairperson or their designee. It would have to be a specific.
Correct.
I think it wouldn't be as difficult, because at that time, we just
But at
sit
that
like
time,
this.
At that time.
Yeah.
Vice Chair Yearwood,
Definitely.
when he becomes a chair, says, I don't want to do it, my
Yes.
designee for this will be,
Exactly, and as long
At
as
that
we
time.
announce it before closed session.
that's all I
perfect.
want. So
Yeah.
I just want the
I
chair,
don't- yeah.
whoever it happens to be,
Yes.
to either be or
Totally.
make their personal
Absolutely.
appointment.
Totally.
And could the chair have a conversation with one of us outside of here, like, and just find out who would want to do that?
It's two people.
What-
Absolutely.
Yeah, right, when he
Yeah.
comes.
When
say-
it time
I'm-
comes time,
Just
yes.
hypothetically, if Michael
Yes.
doesn't want it, he's already talked to Terry, and she says, okay, I'll do it, and so he can just say, I picked Terry instead.
Yes, Vice Chair.
Yeah, but what if he
Yearwood.
asks me and I say no, and then he has to talk to a third person?
So what, he's supposed
hey,
to talk to you before the meeting.
Hello. So
you
let's
changed your
do
mind?
this. Let's wait till then, and let's go ahead and yes, and designate it this way, because then the chair can simply do the same thing I'm doing. Say, hey, you know what? At this time, I would like to renege and ask the board to appoint another chair, and I would like so-and-so.
Is it
And
a-
then the board can just say yes or
Is
no.
it a-
Am I right?
is it a
That's more
difficult-
official?
Is it a
Okay.
difficult process? Don't you just have to do Rochambeau and,
Sloan.
you want how much? Okay, I'll
Thank
Rochambeau,
you.
bro.
Thank you, Director Sloan. So, okay, so let us, let us move forward with this. And I guess, does it have to be an appointing, move and, okay, so I need a motion.
I move the Board of Directors appoint the board chairperson as the agency designated representative for closed session labor negotiations for the district administrator employment agreement.
Moved by Vice Chair Yearwood, seconded by Director Sloan. Roll call vote.
Director Lineback,
Aye.
Director Sloan. Secretary Danzel. Vice Chair Yearwood,
Aye.
and Chair Reyes.
Aye. Okay, so motion carries. All right, so now we're going to move to I, item I, comments on non-agenda.
Yes, we'll turn it over to Administrator Larkin.
Sure. Thank you, Clerk Jones. Just some highlights from the past month. I was accepted into the Leadership Rancho Cordova program. I attended,
Do we need to call a break?
just move
Are
on.
we okay? Okay, shall we just continue? Or okay. Does anyone need another break? Okay,
Okay.
continue, please.
Attended a 2-day retreat to get oriented into the program. It is a program that will conclude in May of 2019. Met some great people, and I'm looking forward to the program. I hosted, well, as we've been talking about, the Williamson Property Outreach Meeting, which I thought was very, very successful. In fact, it was probably the most well-attended community outreach meeting I've had in my career.
Good.
Surprisingly, with that vacant property, it was of interest of so many people due to the history, and really, I think it's because of its location. Coloma is such a main thoroughway through this community for years that people were always wondering what it was going to be. So it was really interesting to hear their, I guess, breathe out when they knew that it was not going to be a gas station or a hotel or something that would have not been a desirable choice. So they were very pleased that it's going to be a park, and I was really happy to be able to share that with them and ease their minds finally. We have a whistle stop coming up on Friday at 11:30 here at City Hall. There are candidates that are going to be speaking for their campaign. I will be planning on attending that as well. We have a Thanksgiving holiday potluck coming up. And I will go back to that. Yeah, it's on Thursday, November 15th at 11:30 at Hagen Building 1. And at that time, there will be, at the December 11th meeting, there will be a recognition of the holiday, or recognition of employees for longevity and those things coming forward for December. In addition to that, we have our board meeting that will be a week earlier, as you know. Just wanted to make sure you noted that it'll be on November 14th at 6:30 here, of course, in the chambers. We will also be off November 12th in recognition of Veterans Day, so that's going to be quite a week. We're off Monday, we have Tuesday, and then we have our board meeting Wednesday. So November is going to be quite a short month, so just keep that in mind, please. District-wide monthly report under the financial, you'll have noticed that in the salaries for the month of August, it was a little higher than typical. It's because we had a 3 pay period month, and that is different from last year, so I wanted to just bring that to your attention. And then Matt Goodell, I know it's a little quieter than usual in here, but he is at the PGMS conference in Louisville, and he is presenting on time management. So Matt has his first public speaking official conference trainer opportunity that he got trained in this particular curriculum back last year at a staff retreat, loved the topic so much, created his own kind of version of that, and is now presenting at that conference. So I'm really proud of him for that, and it's a pretty cool accomplishment that he is doing that. And he's a little excited. He was telling us a story about how TSA was looking through his briefcase and they were like, what is all of these things? And he's like, I swear it's for a conference. So anyway, we miss Matt, but he's doing a great thing. And also Jerry is there as well. And he's been very instrumental in actually putting that conference on. So kudos to that staff. We have completed our interviews for the recreation coordinator position at Mather Sports Center, and we have an offer on the table, and I will be announcing the successful candidate at the upcoming meeting in November, as well as a marketing communications specialist. Interviews are completed with an offer on the table, and I will be announcing that person at the November meeting as well. Interviews for the facility supervisor position will be taking place next week, and we also have a park maintenance worker 1. First round interviews tentatively scheduled for October 22nd. HR was able to provide the staff with a CalPERS training for retirement. I thought that was a great opportunity. Andrea worked with CalPERS to have someone come out to us. We had about 30 staff members attend just to get information on how they are in their abilities to retire from the district if they choose to. So it was, I mean, for even people that aren't ready necessarily tomorrow, it was just really good information for people to plan. So I thought that was great, and thank you, Andrea, for setting that up. At Recreation, there's some great accomplishments. The tennis courts have been off the hook at Heron Landing Park. We had 4 successful tennis classes that were held with the newest instructor we have out there, Kenny Pack, who teaches Pee Wee tennis for 5 to 8-year-olds and fundamentals for youth at 9 to 12-year-olds and teens, 13 to 18-year-olds. Also, they have a cardio tennis for 18 and up. So great off-the-blocks program that we're offering out there, and we have a great instructor out there who's, I believe is a pro. Is Kenny a pro? At least he's been teaching for years in different districts around the area. So I'm really glad to hear that that's actually sustainable and being well received. In addition to that, we also have some success. We have our first NFL Flag Football League officially started. There were 7 teams and a total of 70 participants ranging from 5 to 12. Games were held at Saturday morning at Heron Landing Community Park through November 17th. So go check that out. It's going really well. We've gotten some great compliments from the parents, the kids, and it's a great alternative to tackle football. So we're hoping to look to expand that program going into the future. I just want to thank Jill and her staff for really inventing that, seeing what that service gap was, and quickly and filling it immediately. So thank you and great job to that staff there. At the Neil Orchard Senior Center under the seniors and special events, they held their doggy days at the park. At Hagen, there's approximately 20 vendors and about 350 people participated. Also, Heather Shelsky attended a volunteer recognition event, the Sacramento County's annual RSVP Retired and Senior Volunteer Program. Volunteer Appreciation Lunch. The luncheon was hosted by Carl Curtis from Channel 13. Our very own Minnie Connor was the only one who was awarded with 30 years of dedicated volunteer service, all of which was completed at our senior center. So Minnie received a standing ovation for her years of service, and I have to say that's pretty incredible. For someone who has dedicated their volunteerism for 30 years at our location, it's a very proud thing. So we might have Minnie come to a future meeting, and so we can meet her, and maybe she can lead us in the pledge. So really great for us to be able to recognize our volunteers. In preschool, the kids are in full swing. We have 35 students in 3 classrooms, which is a great turnout so far, and we're always open to recruitment as we go through. The Hideout held its first teen late night program for the school year, and they're doing some pretty cool projects after school. As I mentioned at the 2x2, we are all offering now homework help, not tutoring, homework help for the kids, so that we have a staff person in a quiet area in that conference room for kids to go in. The parents are kind of saying, hey, this kid needs an hour, or this kid needs a half an hour, so we respect that, and it's going really well. It's a nice component to add to that curriculum that we offer in the after-school program. The pool replacement, you got the report this evening. Thank you, Laura, for really taking the lead on that. It's been a lot of work, and clearly we're moving forward with it, and I just really appreciate Laura's efforts in this. It has been a lot of work, and I really appreciate her facilitating all of that. We also are obviously very in the water with our planning at this point. Douglas 98 draft park development agreements, PDAs, Douglas 98 subdivision plan reviews, and Montalena Park B design reviews with the naming selection. All of them are coming fast and furious going forward, and Laura's going to get everything done before she goes on her trip to Italy. Just kidding. So they're really, really coming quickly, and Laura has been just knocking it out of the ballpark and getting responses back as quickly as she can with accuracy and consistency. So thank you for that. In page 73, there is a listing of our updates on our grants. Also in the improvements, we are completed at this point with the storage building at the senior center. We were given grant money from the city of Rancho Cordova to build a senior center storage area for pottery, I believe is the use. If you want to add to that?
Not quite finished. We still got to
Painting.
paint it and we got to put some shelves in it, but we're mostly there.
It's up. It's standing. So yes, we got to do a little fine tuning of it, but for the most part, staff worked really hard. They did it from scratch instead of just getting a prefabbed, unit delivered. Nope, we can't do it that easily. We have to actually build it from scratch, and unfortunately, none of the parts were labeled, and so we were able to have our park staff put it together, and it was quite a challenge, but they did it, and so it's still in progress.
It was a kit, actually.
Well,
Yeah, so.
It's like an IKEA set. So that's what I call it. So, but anyway, great job with the staff. It was a little more challenging than one would thought. So, also, thank you for Laura attending the CSDA conference. I would actually like to turn it over to you for just your impressions about the award, so that you can kind of highlight that moment, I guess, for us.
Whew, well, I almost get a little emotional thinking about it because it was a really special moment for the district, but also for me and my career. And, I started out my career with a goal of I wanted to work on an award-winning project, right? And boy, we're just like winning awards left and right. So I landed where I'm supposed to be, I feel like. So that, and also, it was great to hang out with Rick and Brian at the conference to do some socializing on a little bit at the banquet and some of the evening events. So that was great. But the CSDA did a fantastic job putting together a video about Heron Landing Park. And so leading up to the actual presentation of the award, they showed this video that's about maybe a 3-minute video. And I'm hopeful that we'll get it on the website. I'm not sure we've done that yet. But it was basically the project team in park planning and Patrick out there showcasing all the wonderful, unique, innovative amenities within that park. And they showed that in the background, and that was something to be proud of, I thought. And, it was just personally a very wonderfully satisfying moment. And I just really cherish it. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here with you and going on this wonderful journey that we're on to build the most wonderful park district in the entire world, okay?
This is the third award, right, for Heron Landing?
Well, we've gotten
Am I right?
several awards for Hillside Park,
Hillside we got.
Sunridge Park,
Sunridge.
and Heron Landing Park. So we might be up to like 7 at this point. It's a lot.
This is our second one for Heron Landing specifically, though, no?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And right now it's in the running for consideration with the local chapter of the ASLA. So that award banquet's coming up, and they're not revealing yet whether, where we actually applied for two different categories. One is the park course, the Lincoln Village Park course, because they wanted to have a category for projects that were designed by government employees, that was a lot of community input, and not necessarily a project that required a lot of money. Because let's face it, I mean, if you got a $10 million project going up against a $100,000 project, there's no competition there. So they created a category. So we submitted that Lincoln Village project. We think we have a pretty good chance on that. And then we also submitted the Heron Landing Park. So we'll see.
Wonderful. Get them both.
I'm so glad I asked her to report on that.
Yes.
Thank you for your passion and all your
Might
work.
I add, when she went up to accept the award and she spoke, which she was a little apprehensive about that, but she did a great job, and she never said I. it was always we, you know, it was like we did this and it was a team that accomplished this feat. So I thought that was great.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Also bringing your attention to page 75, which is the special events invitation page. There's a lot of things going on in the month of November and later in October. And that concludes my report.
Any questions from our board? Thank you, District Administrator Larkin. Okay, so now the next one is information items.
Thank you, Chair Riz. Item J1 is articles, correspondence, public outreach. We have 2 letters, one CRPD newsletter and one Senior Center newsletter. And Administrator Larkin asked if I could provide an update on these 2 letters that we had. The first was regarding the CRPD Conflict of Interest Code update. And as you recall, we originally did that item in August and then had to do a little cleanup item at our special meeting last week. So the update on that is that the final has been submitted to County Council for their approval and taken to the Board of Supervisors after that. So once that's all completed, I'll report back. And then Director Sloan was kind enough to provide the update on the new Executive Director for Capri, Mr. Duarte. So that letter is also in your packet.
Matt
Thank you.
Duarte. All right, thank you. Future agenda items, meetings?
Yes, item K1 is regarding the November 14th board meeting, which is our new date. So far on the agenda, we have to approve and sign certificates for employee recognition. That, of course, prepares us for our recognition event in December. And then we're also going to have an item regarding holiday office closures.
Okay. And then we have the calendar. All right. Anything on the calendar that you need to bring to the attention of the board? Veterans Day celebration at the center, senior center, 11:30.
They have a luncheon and sometimes they're themed and that's their theme for that day.
What time is our trunk and treat? Trunk and treat or treat and trunk?
Starts at 4:30.
Okay, great.
So I'll be there about 3:30 setting up.
Okay. 3:30. Trunk. All right. So unless there's anything else, I would like to move to item L, which is closed session.
Thank you. I'll announce the item. Item L1 is a liability claim pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9. The claimant is Juan Yang, and the agency claimed against is Cordova Recreation and Park District.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, we will recess to the closed session in the community boardroom. Thank you.